shooting. If you guys don't recall, the two bailiffs got shot on Monday, or two bailiffs were murdered on Monday. Other people were shot. And basically, this was an inmate who stole a gun from a police officer, just like the guy who tried to kill Donald Trump. He stole a firearm. And then the tweets come out, and the guy, the celebrity is saying, hey, we need to ban the guns. It's the NRA's fault. F the NRA. And people said, this guy stole a gun, just like the guy who tried to kill Trump, which is to say, yeah, you can get your guns legally if you're a United States citizen, you don't have a criminal record and all of that. But at the same time, at the end of the day, if a criminal wants to get a gun, they are willing to steal a gun from an active duty conscious police officer. That, banning guns isn't going to lessen crime in the United States of America. People may use a different weapon to commit their crime, but they're still going to steal guns if they have to, if that's what they have to do to accomplish their goals. And now, real quickly, this is a sign of the times. People are so out of touch, they actually think that a porn star is about to become the prime minister over in the UK. And this is the British lawmaker, Theresa May, and not the adult actress, as many people confused her with being. It's somewhat of a funny article, and you can read that at your leisure. But finally tonight, going to warn you guys about Pokemon Go. Now, I'm not as critical about the app as some other people are, but just basically so you know, people are taking advantage of the app to rob you. So you got people looking around their phones, going into the woods, hey, I'm gonna catch some Pokemon, and then they catch a bonk to the head because they got robbed by people who set them up over the app. So just something for you to know as we go in to our next segment. So stay tuned right after this break for more special reports.
Attorney General Loretta Lynch was on the Hill today in front of the House Judiciary Committee at an oversight hearing on Justice Department operations. Regarding those operations, Attorney General Lynch stonewalled the committee with non-answers and legal diversion.
Director Comey stated that there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information. Do you agree with Director Comey's statement?
Again, I would refer you to Director Comey for any further explanation as to the basis for his recommendations. The recommendation that I received from the team, including Director Comey, was that the investigation be resolved without charges.
Director Comey made a recommendation, but he made a recommendation to the Department of Justice, which you head, and you would have to come to the final conclusion on whether or not to act. I would presume that before you acted, you would look at his conclusions and determine whether you agreed with them or not.
Meanwhile, the Democrats used the opportunity to promote gun control.
There is an epidemic of gun violence. And how has the majority in Congress responded? With emergency hearings about Hillary Clinton's and Lois Lerner's emails.
Democratic Congressman Hank Johnson weighed in on the Democrats' perception that the hearings were unimportant to the protection of national security.
My colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't. They're just tone deaf, and they insist on chasing rabbits down holes by trying to make some hay out of something that this is over with.
You may remember Johnson once expressed concern over Guam tipping over.
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that.
But Lynch could not avoid the clarity surrounding her decision to speak with Bill Clinton days before the decision and her declaration to support the FBI's investigation before the investigation was closed.
You have a conversation with the former president, the husband of the subject of an ongoing investigation, and you have that conversation before they've interviewed the subject and before they've reached their recommendations and finished their investigation. That's what triggered you to do this thing you've never done before, which is announce, I don't care what they recommend, I'm going to follow it.
My concern was that the conversation that I had with President Clinton would be seen by some as having an influence over that. I felt it was important to clarify.
Just some, General Lynch, a lot of people.
But now, as Kurt Nimmo writes, FBI Director James Comey's past and present employment as director of HSBC's holdings and subsequent promotion to independent non-executive director and a member of the Financial System Vulnerabilities Committee, an appointment set to expire this year, clearly has blatant ties to the Clinton Foundation. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte of Virginia and committee member Representative Trey Gowdy of South Carolina want to know if the emails that were deleted and recovered by the FBI had anything to do with the Clinton Foundation. The Mexican drug cartel money laundering Swiss bank HSBC is connected to the Clinton Foundation through a number of initiatives, including its Building the Corporate Coalition, investing in management and leadership in Vietnam, and other American economy-destroying free trade agreement projects. Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, Morgan Stanley, and a number of transnational corporations also participate. The Clintons have used the foundation to enrich themselves. Documents disclosed through litigation by Judicial Watch provided a roadmap for over 200 conflict of interest rulings that led to at least $48 million in speaking fees for the Clintons during Hillary Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State. Hillary Clinton and her aides were involved in fundraising for the foundation, and she turned the State Department into the D.C. office of the Clinton Foundation, something she will now do to the White House. What will it take to convince every American citizen that they are being scammed at the highest levels? In my next report, I will be digging into Comey's involvement into Whitewater. Comey's protection of the Clinton corruption machine goes way back. John Bound for INFOWARS.com.
Since Bernie Sanders came out and announced his candidacy for the president of the United States, he began to hit Hillary Clinton hard, labeling her as one of the most corrupt politicians America has ever seen. The fact that she took money from Goldman Sachs, the fact that she is the queen of Wall Street. Let's take a look at a few clips that prove what Bernie Sanders said about her connections with Wall Street.
Secretary Clinton has a number of super PACs. One of her super PACs recently reported that they raised $25 million from special interest, $15 million from Wall Street alone.
I don't take money from big banks. I don't get personal speaking fees from Goldman Sachs.
Here's the story. I mean, let's not be naive about it. I have never heard a candidate, never, who has received huge amounts of money from oil, from coal, from Wall Street, from the military-industrial complex. Not one candidate said, oh, these campaign contributions will not influence me. I'm going to be independent. Well, why do they make millions of dollars of campaign contributions? They expect to get something. Everybody knows that.
Basically, he has basically used his answer to impugn my integrity. Let's be frank here. Oh, wait a minute, Senator.
Did it have anything to do with the fact that Wall Street spent billions of dollars on lobbying and campaign contributions? Well, some people might think, yeah, that had some influence. One of us has a super PAC. One of us has raised $15 million from Wall Street for that super PAC. One of us has given speeches on Wall Street for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, I kind of think if you get paid a couple of $100,000 for a speech, must be a great speech. I think we should release it and let the American people see what that transcript was. Every candidate in the history of the world, Democrat, Republican, when they receive huge amounts of money from Wall Street or the drug companies or the fossil fuel industries, what they always say, not going to impact me. And our question is, if it's not going to impact their decisions, why would Wall Street be spending $15 million? I don't think that you are qualified if you get $15 million from Wall Street through your super PAC. I don't think you are qualified if you have voted for the disastrous war in Iraq. I have come here to make it as clear as possible as to why I am endorsing Hillary Clinton, and I intend to do everything I can to make certain she will be the next president of the United States.
We've seen incredible gullibility out of the Republican Party's constituents over the years. Just look at all the lies that George W. Bush supporters put up with. But I gotta tell you, Democrats take the cake, especially Bernie Sanders supporters. He came out yesterday and said that, oh, we've realized so many of our goals and we're so victorious, and now I'm throwing my support to Hillary, when Hillary is the most corporate, most crony capitalist candidate out of the entire field we've seen the last 2 years. I mean, she makes Donald Trump look like the outsider he is. And it's so sad to see Bernie supporters who are committed to getting their so-called free lunch buying into anything and everything that the Democratic Party pitches at them. It's so clear that the big money and the big media and all the big robber barons are lined up against Donald Trump. But most of the former Bernie supporters out there that are being polled are saying, hey, we're going for Hillary. It's truly shameful. Then the corporate media that sells us all these illegal wars and all these other lies is telling us Donald Trump's an evil racist and the worst person in the world, and that we all need to support Hillary because that's the best thing to do, and that it's good to go out and demonstrate and protest against the local police because they're corrupt. That's the big, out of control federal government bought and paid for by foreign interests that militarize the police to be their enforcers. Now, because they're concerned about an American-style Brexit out of the North American Union and globalism, they're trying to trigger the revolution that's brewing against local government and police. They're trying to distract the public, at the same time bring in a type of soft civil war where the UN can then be the honchos of the reorganization of the United States. Look at the riots all over the country. The police stations being shot up, the police being killed. Can you just walk up to police you don't even know the name of and randomly say you deserve to die? And some will say, well, they do that to some citizens. Statistically, police killings are flat. Even as the crime rate that's been lower for 20 years starts to go up because the economy is imploding. All Americans are starting to see, on average, their living standards go down. We're seeing our basic freedoms under attack. We are collectively, as a citizenry, under attack. And it was so exciting a few weeks ago to see the Brexit, which was a move against globalism, led by the Ron Paul / Alex Jones / Matt Drudge of Europe, Nigel Farage, to see that for days be the #1 search term. To have more search terms than all porn terms combined. There was one other search term that was also #1 for a day and in the top 5 for an entire week. That was Hillary for president. It shows the power of we, the populist peoples, the libertarians, the libertà, the true liberators, the liberals, not the controllers, not the counterfeit liberals and their Republican cohorts who are trying to shackle and control this huge awakening that's taking place. I'm going to Cleveland in just a few days. And I'm going to be there for the full week of the RNC. We're also sending a crew to the DNC. And we're going to be standing up for the truth. We're going to be exposing that the Republican Party has said they're still going to try to steal the nomination from Donald Trump. We're going to be there exposing the social justice warriors and how programmed they are. And we're going to be putting airplanes in the sky that point out that Hillary should be sent to prison, not the White House. We're going to have trucks driving around town with the same thing on the side. All because you've taken action and believed in us, we believed in you, and the INFOWARS is having a giant effect. Now, I've got other reports coming up today that deal with the assault on reality, the attempt to get the average person to not be politically or culturally involved. We're going to be looking at some of the big phenomenons in AI and augmented reality, the new Pokemon Go phenomenon, and more. And David Knight's going to be breaking down with his guest, Anthony Gucciardi, and others, the latest breaking news and taking your phone calls. But make no mistake, when the entire establishment and the entire media that we know are a pack of criminal liars, discredited frauds, are telling us that Hillary Clinton's our Lord and Savior, if we really elect her, a lot of people deserve what they get. All I know is I feel like America and the whole world's reached the point of no return. It's not that Donald Trump is a perfect solution, but he's a protest against everything we've seen so far. And I hope that we can live up to what our cousins in the UK have done and send out a signal in 2016 that we too are leaving corporate world government